How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, April 3rd, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Friday, April 2nd, 2021. And of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Of course, starting with the NBA, as the NBA is starting to enter the second half of the season, jumping out to Tampa Bay, it was the biggest matchup of the game. The biggest story of the night happened where the Toronto Raptors were able to beat the Golden State Warriors 130-77. There was a point in the game where they outscored the Golden State, where they were outscoring the Warriors about 120 to 60 in the game. The Raptors would end up outscoring the Warriors by 19 in the second quarter. They outscored them by 32 in the third quarter. Those were the two quarters where they really outscored the Warriors and kind of did their damage, and they picked up their 19th win of the season as a result. And this is actually a rematch of the 2019 NBA Finals, by the way. Looking at how the Warriors fared, their leading scorer was their starting small forward, Andrew Wiggins, who finished with 15 points in 27 minutes as he shot 5 for 9 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. For the Toronto Raptors, their leading scorer was their elite starting power forward, and of course, the birthday boy from yesterday, Pascal Siakam, who yesterday actually turned 27. In this matchup, he would end up with 36 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 31 minutes as he shot 14 for 24 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting guard out of Duke, Gary Trent Jr., would finish with 24 points and 5 rebounds as well as 2 blocks in 30 minutes as he shot 8 for 14 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. He had the best plus-minus of the game. He had a plus 54 plus-minus for all 30 minutes that he was in the game as well. Also in the starting lineup, their starting small forward out of Indiana, OG Anunoby, would finish with 21 points and 2 steals in 26 minutes as he shot 8 for 12 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Toronto Raptors are now 19-30. That is the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They have now won 2 of their last 10 games as a result. They currently sit 5 games behind the 7th place Brooklyn Nets, or the 7th place New York Knicks, and the 8th place Boston Celtics outside of the playoff race, as they currently trail the 1st place Brooklyn Nets by 15 total games within the conference. With this loss, the Golden State Warriors are now 23-26. That is the 10th best record in the Western Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 7 of their last 10. They now sit 2.5 games behind the San Antonio Spurs and outside of the playoff race, as they sit 14.5 games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz in the whole conference. Jumping out to New Orleans, the New Orleans Pelicans hosted the Atlanta Hawks, and in this matchup, the Atlanta Hawks would beat the Pelicans 126-103. The difference being for the second half, they would end up outscoring the New Orleans Pelicans by a total of 22 points in the half, after they came back from being down in the first quarter to taking a 1-point lead at halftime. For the New Orleans Pelicans in this matchup, off the bench, their leading scorer would be their point guard, Kira Lewis Jr. In the game, he would be the only player for the Pelicans to put up at least 20 points. He finished with 21 points in 26 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and he made his only 3 of the night. And then for the Atlanta Hawks, their leading scorer was their starting shooting guard, Bogdan Bogdanovic, who finished with 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists in 33 minutes, shooting 9 for 17 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. Alongside Bogdanovic in the starting lineup, their starting shooting guard out of Maryland, Kevin Huerter, would finish with 24 points in 34 minutes, shooting 10 for 15 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 25-24. That is the 5th, or that's tied with the Miami Heat for the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 2 games and 6 of their last 10. Within the playoff picture, they and the Heat sit half a game behind the 4th place Charlotte Hornets at the moment, and both these teams also sit a game ahead of the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Boston Celtics, just to show how close the bottom half of the Eastern Conference is, as they trail the 1st place Brooklyn Nets by 9 games in the conference. With this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 20 21-27. That is the fourth worst record in the Western Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games and 5 of their last 10. They currently sit 4 games outside of the playoff race behind the 8th seed of San Antonio Spurs, as they currently trail the Utah Jazz by 16 games in the Western Conference. Jumping out to Boston, the Boston Celtics hosted the Houston Rockets as the Celtics were able to pick up a 118-102 win. They went on to outscore the Houston Rockets by 8 points in the first half and then 8 points in the second half. In this matchup for the Rockets, their leading scorer would be their starting center, Christian Wood, who finished with 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 steals in 32 minutes, as he shot 8 for 16 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he shot 2 for 7 from the foul line on the night. For the Boston Celtics in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite small forward out of Duke University, Jason Tatum, who finished with 26 points and 9 rebounds in 32 minutes, shooting 9 for 17 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Their all-star shooting guard, Jaylen Brown, would finish with 22 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals in 27 minutes, as he shot 9 for 20 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting center, Robert Williams III, would finish with 20 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 blocks in 26 minutes, as he shot a perfect 9 for 9 from the field and 2 for 3 from the foul line. And then amongst their starters, their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, would finish with 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists in 28 minutes, as he shot 4 for 8 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3. And then off the bench, their shooting guard, their newest 6-man shooting guard, Evan Fournier, would finish with 23 points in 30 minutes, shooting 8 for 13 from the field and 7 for 11 from 3. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 24-25. They are now tied with the New York Knicks for the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference, as the Celtics have now won 4 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they currently sit a game behind the 5th place Atlanta Hawks and the 6th place Miami Heat, and they currently sit 2 games ahead of the 9th place Indiana Pacers, who are just outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they and the New York Knicks trail the 1st place Brooklyn Nets by 10 games in the Eastern Conference. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 13-35. That is the second worst record in the Western Conference, as they've now lost their last 3 games and 8 of their last 10. They currently sit 12 games behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs outside of the playoff race, and they currently trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 24 games in the Western Conference, to give a sense of where the Rockets stand. Jumping out to Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks hosted the Dallas Mavericks, and the Mavericks were able to pull up the 99-86 win. The big difference being the fourth quarter, where they outscored the Knicks by 10 as they came into the fourth quarter up by 3 to pick up their 26th win of the season. For the New York Knicks in this matchup, their leading scorer will come off the bench, as their shooting guard Alec Burks would finish with 20 points and 2 steals in 29 minutes, as he shot 6 for 11 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. And then out of their starters, their all-star power forward Julius Randle would finish with 14 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, and 5 turnovers in 37 minutes, as he shot 5 for 20 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. For the Dallas Mavericks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Luka Doncic, who finished with 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists, as well as 5 turnovers in 35 minutes, as he shot 11 for 23 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and 1 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Dallas Mavericks are now 26-21. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference. They've now won their last 3 games as a team, and they've now won 6 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they sit 2.5 games behind the 6th place Portland Trail Blazers, and they sit a game and a half ahead of the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, and as they trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 10.5 games out west. With this loss, the New York Knicks are now 24-25. They are now tied with the Boston Celtics for the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost their last 3 games and 6 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they trail the Atlanta Hawks and the Miami Heat by a game in the Eastern Conference, as they and the Boston Celtics sit 2 games ahead of the 9th place Indiana Pacers, who are on the outside looking in. And overall, they trail the 1st place Brooklyn Nets, their inner city rivals, by 10 games in the Eastern Conference. Jumping out to Indianapolis, the team that are just on the outside looking in, Indiana Pacers hosted the Charlotte Hornets, and in this matchup, the Hornets would beat the Pacers 114-97. In the first half, they would end up outscoring Indiana by 11 points, and then they outscored Indiana by 9 in the fourth. For the Pacers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard out of Michigan, Karis LeVert, who finished with 16 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 35 minutes as he shot 5 for 13 from the field and 4 for 6 from the foul line. And then their all-star power forward, Domantas Sabonis, would finish with 8 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists in 27 minutes as he shot 4 for 7 from the field on the night. For the Charlotte Hornets, their leading scorer will come off the bench as their small forward, Miles Bridges, out of Michigan State, would finish with 23 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 steals in 31 minutes as he shot 8 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. And with this win, the Charlotte Hornets are now 25-23. That is the fourth best record in the Eastern Conference as they've now won 5 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they now trail the third-place Milwaukee Bucks by 6 total games. They sit half a game ahead of the fifth place Atlanta Hawks and the 6th place Miami Heat. And overall, they trail the first place Brooklyn Nets by 8.5 games in the Eastern Conference as they sit 2.5 games ahead of the 8th place Boston Celtics. That's how far they are in the Eastern Conference. And with this loss, the Indiana Pacers are now 21-26. That is the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference as they have now lost their last 3 games and 6 of their last 10 games. They now sit 2 games behind the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Boston Celtics outside of the playoff picture as they trail the first place Brooklyn Nets by 12 games in the conference. Jumping out to Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves, the current holders of the NBA's worst record. And in this matchup, the Grizzlies would win this game 120-108. They would outscore the Minnesota Timberwolves by 10 points in the second half in order to do so. For the Timberwolves in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting center out of Kentucky, Karl Anthony Towns. He finished with 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists in 34 minutes as he shot 11 for 25 from the field, 1 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. And then their starting small forward, the number 1 overall pick from the 2020 NBA draft, Anthony Edwards, would finish with 22 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks in 31 minutes as he shot 9 for 14 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. For the Memphis Grizzlies in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting center, Jonas Valanciunas, who finished with 19 points and 11 rebounds in 22 minutes as he went on to shoot 7 for 14 from the field. He made his only 3-pointer of the day, and he shot a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. And then alongside him in the starting lineup, their elite starting point guard, Ja Morant, out of Murray State, would finish with 11 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists in 28 minutes as he shot 3 for 7 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 23-23. That is the 9th best record in the Western Conference as they have now won 6 of their last 10 games. They now sit a game behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs outside of the playoff picture looking in as they trail the first place Utah Jazz by 13 total games in the conference. With this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 12-37. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games as they currently hold the worst record in the Western Conference and the entire NBA for that matter. They currently sit 13.5 games behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs outside the playoff picture, and they sit 25.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz in the Western Conference. Jumping out to Utah, speaking of the Jazz were able to beat the Chicago Bulls 113-106 at home. They outscored the Bulls by 8 in the second quarter and 6 in the third, by 14 in the middle quarters. It was enough to give them their 37th win of the season. For the Chicago Bulls in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting power forward, Thaddeus Young, who finished with their 25 points and 7 rebounds in 33 minutes, shooting 11 for 17 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And then their all-star shooting guard, Zach LaVine, would finish with 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in 31 minutes, shooting 10 for 22 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. And for the Chicago Bulls, their all-star center, Nikola Vucevic, would finish with 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in 29 minutes as he shot 5 for 14 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. For the Utah Jazz in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell, who finished with 26 points, 3 rebounds and 5 assists in 36 minutes as he shot 7 for 21 from the field, 2 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 10 for 10 from the foul line. Their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 32 minutes, shooting 6 for 7 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. And then their all-star point guard, Mike Conley, would finish with 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists in 32 minutes, shooting 5 for 13 from the field and 3 for 8 from 3. With this win, the Utah Jazz are now 37-11. They have the best record in the NBA, and they currently sit on top of the Western Conference. They had the best streak in the NBA so far, too, as they are now currently on a 8-game winning streak. They've won 9 of their last 10, and they sit 3 games ahead of the second-place Phoenix Suns to give a sense of where they sit out west. And with this loss, the Chicago Bulls are now 19-28. That is the 10th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost their last 6 games. That is the worst losing streak so far in the NBA, and they have now lost 8 of their last 10 games. The Chicago Bulls now sit 4 games behind the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Boston Celtics outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they trail the first place Brooklyn Nets by 14 total games out east. And then looking out to Phoenix, the Phoenix Suns hosted and were able to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 140-103. In this matchup, they would outscore Oklahoma City by 30 in the first quarter, and they virtually carried that momentum through the rest of the game. They even outscored Oklahoma City by 10 points in the final quarter. For the Thunder in this matchup, their leading scorer will be their starting point guard, their rookie starting point guard, Theo Maledon, as he finished with 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 turnovers in 31 minutes as he shot 10 for 18 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and 8 for 10 from the foul line. And also in their starting lineup, their starting power forward, Aleksej Pokusevski, sorry if I butchered the name, he would finish with 20 points and 5 rebounds in 33 minutes as he shot 7 for 14 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, and 2 for 4 from the foul line. For the Phoenix Suns in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, who finished with 32 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists in 30 minutes as he shot 11 for 20 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul, would finish with 17 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, and 3 steals in 22 minutes as he shot a perfect 8 for 8 from the field and 1 for 1 from 3. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 34-14. That is the second best record in the Western Conference, as they now sit 3 games behind the first place Utah Jazz. They've now won their last 5 games, as they now have won 8 of their last 10, and then along with sitting 3 games under the first place Utah Jazz, they now sit 3 games ahead of the third place Los Angeles Clippers out west. With this loss, the Oklahoma City Thunder are now 20-28. That is the third worst record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost 6 of their last 10. They currently sit 5 games behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference playoff picture, as they trail the first place Utah Jazz by 17 total games within the Western Conference. Jumping out to Portland, the Portland Trailblazers hosted the Milwaukee Bucks on prime time, and in this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks would end up beating the Portland Trailblazers 127-109. The difference coming in the first quarter, the Bucks would outscore the Trailblazers by 13, but they would also outscore the Trailblazers by 17 in the third quarter. For the Trailblazers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Damian Lillard, out of Weber State, who finished with 32 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 34 minutes, as he shot 10 for 19 from the field, 5 for 10 from 3, and 7 for 10 from the foul line. And then for the Milwaukee Bucks, their leading scorer, of course, would be their elite starting power forward, reigning NBA back-to-back MVP, reigning NBA Defensive Player of the Year, and the reigning NBA All-Star Game MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak. He would play 33 minutes, and he would finish with 47 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 blocks in 33 minutes as he shot 18 for 21 from the field, 0 for 3 for 3, meaning he shot a perfect 18 for 18 from inside the three-point line, and he also shot 11 for 13 from the foul line in this matchup as well. Alongside him in their starting lineup, their starting point guard, Jrue Holiday, would finish with 22 points and 10 assists, as well as 2 steals in 33 minutes, as he shot 9 for 14 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 2 for 2 from the foul line. And their starting small forward, Chris Middleton, would finish with 20 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 steals, alongside 5 turnovers in 32 minutes, as Middleton shot 8 for 13 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 31-17. That is the third best record in the Eastern Conference, as they've now won their last 2 games and 7 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they sit 2 games behind the second-place Philadelphia 76ers, and they sit 6 games ahead of the fourth-place Charlotte Hornets out east. And then with this loss, the Portland Trail Blazers are now 29-19. That is the 6th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost 3 of their last 10. They've won 7 of their last 10. That's how you do the math on the other side. In the playoff picture, they now sit 1 game behind the 5th seed Denver Nuggets, and they sit 2.5 games ahead of the 7th seed Dallas Mavericks, as they trail the first place Utah Jazz by 8 games in the Western Conference. Jumping out to Sacramento for the final game of the night, the Sacramento Kings hosted the defending champs, D-Claude, as they were not featuring LeBron James or Anthony Davis. But in this matchup, the defending champs would beat the Sacramento Kings 115-94. The big difference being, of course, the first half. They outscored the Kings by 12 in the first half. Then they would outscore the Kings by 9 in the second half. It was just, they were able to kind of dominate the whole game to pick up their 31st win of the season. For the Sacramento Kings, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Harrison Barnes, who finished with 26 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 turnovers in 37 minutes, as he shot 9 for 10 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. And for the Los Angeles Lakers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward out of Utah, Kyle Kuzma, who finished with 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in 36 minutes, as he went on to shoot 11 for 18 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Los Angeles Lakers are now 31-18. That is the 4th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now won 5 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they now sit half a game behind their Staples Center roommates, the 3rd place Los Angeles Clippers, and they also sit half a game ahead of the 5th place Denver Nuggets out west, as they trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 6.5 games in the Western Conference. With this loss, the Sacramento Kings are now 22-27. That is the 5th worst record in the Western Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games, even though they've won 7 of their last 10. They currently sit 3.5 games outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, and they sit 15.5 games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz in the Western Conference. As of right now, that is how the NBA is situated. Those were all the games from yesterday. Looking forward to how the NBA is going to go today, going through the primetime matchups. The only game, or there'll be no primetime NBA, as of course the NCAA Men's Championship is today. But at 7 o'clock, the Washington Wizards will host the Dallas Mavericks. Russell Westbrook and Luka Doncic look to face off against one another, 2 triple-double threats. At 8 o'clock, the Detroit Pistons, the current holders of the Eastern Conference's worst record, are going to host the New York Knicks at 8 o'clock. At the same time, the Miami Heat, the defending Eastern Conference champs, are going to host the Cleveland Cavaliers. And also the Philadelphia 76ers are going to host the Minnesota Timberwolves, the current holder of the NBA's worst record. At 9 o'clock, the San Antonio Spurs are going to host the Indiana Pacers. The Utah Jazz, the holders of the best record, are going to host the Utah Jazz, or they're going to host the Orlando Magic at the same time. And then at 10 o'clock, the Portland Trail Blazers are going to host the Oklahoma City Thunder. And at the same time, the Sacramento Kings are going to host the Milwaukee Bucks at 10 o'clock. As of right now, that is what the NBA is looking like as of right now. Shifting the context to college basketball, to March Madness, both Final Four matchups of the NCAA women's bracket were played yesterday. So first, starting off with the 1-1 matchup between the champion of the Alamo region, Stanford, and the champion of the Hemisphere region, South Carolina. In this matchup, Stanford would end up beating South Carolina 66-65, as the game would come all the way down to the final stretch. And after some good free throw shooting and after a lot of back and forth, South Carolina would have a chance to win the game, but a missed putback attempt from Aaliyah Boston would result in Stanford running away and with they will be one of the two teams that will face off in the national championship. They were led by their guard Haley Jones, who had 24 points of her own, and now they will advance to the national championship. And in the other matchup in the women's Final Four, it would be between the winners of the Mercado region, 3rd seed Arizona, and the winner of the Riverwalk region, 1 seed UConn. And in this matchup, the Mercado champs, 3 seed Arizona, would end up beating 1 seed UConn in what many people believe was an upset. Arizona would beat UConn 69-59. The big difference would be in the first quarter, where they outscored UConn by 10, and they outscored them by 10. The second half was pretty even. And of course, Arizona was led by their guard, Ari McDonald, who had 26 points, 7 rebounds, and a couple of steals. And now it'll be a Pac-12 women's national championship matchup, as it will be 3 seed Arizona versus 1 seed Stanford. And of course, when that game is set up, I will get back to you. I will preview it once the game is set up. But that is currently how the women's bracket is looking, as the amount of teams has shrunk from 64, and now there's only 2 teams remaining in the women's March Madness bracket. Now looking at what's going on today for the men's side, the first matchup will be at 5:14. It will be the matchup between the between the South champions Baylor and the Midwest champions 2nd seed Houston. This game will be at 5:14 on CBS, and of course the winner of this matchup will go to the national championship against the winner of 1 seed Gonzaga and 11 seed UCLA. This game will be on CBS. Gonzaga is coming into this game as the winners of the West region, and UCLA coming in as the winners of the East. After UCLA they're the only remaining team that had to play in to get into their seed. So of course, incredible story for all 4 of these teams. And once both of these teams will be played, I will get back tomorrow just to preview the national championship for the men, as that is currently where we are sitting. There are 4 teams left in the men's bracket. By the end of today, there will be 2. So that's what's going on with college basketball, shifting the focus, of course, to the MLB, just to show what's going on out there. Going down the list as to where these teams were playing, because only about half of the games that were played on Thursday were actually played on Friday as well. Starting in Boston, the Boston Red Sox hosted the Baltimore Orioles, and in this one, the Baltimore Orioles would end up beating the Red Sox 3-0. Scoring plays would end up being the big play would be in the 6th inning, where Ryan Mountcastle hit a 2-run double that would end up giving them the runs that they needed. For the Red Sox, the loss would go to Nathan Eovaldi. He's now 0-1. He would allow 1 earned run in the 5.1 innings that he's pitched, as he struck out 4 batters. And then for Boston, not much going on in their batting lineup. Their elite designated hitter, JD Martinez, would go 1 for 4. That's not much going on there. But looking at how the Orioles fared, the win, of course, would go to their starting pitcher, John Means. And in this game, he would allow no earned runs, as he would allow only 1 hit in the 5 innings that he pitched. Like I said, he's now 1-0 on the season. And then their designated hitter, Ryan Mountcastle, now 1 for 4 on the season, as he now has 2 RBIs. Their center fielder, Mullins, would go 2 for 4 as he finished with a run. And then their catcher, Pedro Severino, would finish 2 for 4 as he finished with the other run of the day. With this win, the Baltimore Orioles are now 1-0. That is, of course, the second best record in the American League, as they trail the first place Rays by half a game. With this loss, the Boston Red Sox are now 0-1 as they trailed the first place Tampa Bay Rays by a game and a half in the AL East. Jumping out to Miami, the Miami Marlins hosted the Tampa Bay Rays, as the Rays were able to pick up their 2nd win of the season, the reigning AL champs. They came into the 9th inning actually trailing 4-2, but they would end up scoring 4 runs in the 9th after a 3-run home run from Joey Wendell would put them up by 1, and then a Francisco Mejia sacrifice fly would put the Rays up by 1 more to get their 2nd win. For the Marlins, the start went to Pablo Lopez, as he allowed no earned runs and 2 hits in the 5 innings that he pitched, as he struck out 4 batters. Their biggest hitter was their center Starling Marte, who finished 3 for 5 on the day. Their shortstop Miguel Rojas would go 2 for 5 as he finished with 2 RBIs. Their second baseman Jazz Chisholm would go 2 for 3 as he finished with a run as well. For the Tampa Bay Rays, the start went to Yarbrough as he allowed no earned runs in the 5.2 innings that he pitched as he struck out 3 batters. For Tampa Bay, Manuel Margot would pick up his first triple of the season. Their left fielder, Austin Meadows, would go 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his second home run of the season. Manuel Margot, in addition to hitting his first triple of the season, would also hit his first home run of the season. He went 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs on the day. And overall, with this win, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 2-0 as the Marlins now drop to 0-2. Looking at how that fares, the Rays are now sitting with the best record in the American League. As I said, half a game ahead of the second place Tampa Bay or Toronto Blue Jays and Baltimore Orioles at the moment. And with this loss, the Marlins are now 0-2, sitting at the bottom of the National League, trailing the Philadelphia Phillies by 1.5 games. Jumping out to Denver, the Colorado Rockies hosted the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers as the Dodgers picked up their first win of the season in Trevor Bauer's first start. They would win this one 11-6 as it was just an onslaught over the entire game. Colorado would score all 6 of their runs in the 7th inning. Only 4 of them would come off Trevor Bauer. But with this, so far with the loss would go to Senzatella for Colorado as he allowed 7 earned runs in 3 innings that he pitched. Their shortstop, Trevor Story, would go 2 for 4 with a run. Their elite right fielder, Charlie Blackmon, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season. And jumping out to how the Dodgers fared, their elite starting pitcher, Trevor Bauer, would pick up his first win of the season. He's now 1-0. He would allow 4 earned runs in the 6.1 innings that he pitched as he struck out 10 batters for the night. In their lineup, their elite right fielder, Mookie Betts, would go 2 for 5 with 2 runs. Their elite shortstop, Corey Seager, would go 3 for 5 with an RBI and 3 runs. Now just continue to go on. Their elite center fielder, Cody Bellinger, would go 1 for 5 with an RBI and a run. Their catcher, Will Smith, would go 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs, as he would finish with 2 doubles on the day. And their second baseman, Gavin Lux, would go 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run. With this win, the Dodgers are now 1-1. With this win, they are sitting with they're tied with the Rockies and the Giants for the second best record in the National League West as they trail the San Diego Padres by 1 game as they trail them by 1 game in the division. And with this loss, the Rockies have the same record as they also trail the Padres by 1 game in the NL West. Jumping out to Anaheim, the Los Angeles Angels hosted the Chicago White Sox. In this matchup, the White Sox would beat the Angels 12-8. The big difference would come in, of course, the 9th inning, where the White Sox would outscore the Angels 5-2. But, of course, they came into this one 7-6, as it was pretty close for the entirety of the game. For the Angels, the start went to Heaney, as Heaney allowed 7 earned runs in 3 innings pitched. He picked up his first loss of the season. Also for the Angels, their designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani, would go 1 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his first home run of the season. Their future Hall of Fame first baseman, Albert Pujols, would go 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run as he hit his first home run of the season as well. Their goated center fielder, Mike Trout, would go 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he went on to hit his first double of the season. And for the Chicago White Sox, the start will go to Dallas Keuchel. He will get the no decision as he allowed 3 earned runs in 4 innings pitched, striking out 4 batters. Their elite shortstop, Tim Anderson, will go 1 for 5 with an RBI and 2 runs as he hit his first home run of the season. The reigning American League MVP and the elite Jose Abreu would hit the first MLB Grand Slam of the season as he went 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs on the day. Their catcher, Yasmani Grandal, will go 2 for 5 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs. With this win, the Chicago White Sox are now 1-1, and looking at the American League Central, they now sit half a game behind the first place Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers as they currently sit 3rd in their division. With this loss, the Los Angeles Angels are now 1-1 as they are tied with the Seattle Mariners for the second best record in the AL West as they trail the first place Houston Astros by 1 game. Speaking of the Astros went to Oakland and were able to beat the Athletics 9-5. as they were able to just add runs throughout the entire game to pick up their second win of the season. For the Athletics in this matchup, the loss would go to Jesus Luzardo, as he's now 0-1 on the season. He would allow 5 earned runs in 5 innings pitched, striking out 8 batters. Their first baseman, Matt Olson, would go 2 for 4 with a run. Their elite third baseman, Matt Chapman, would go 0 for 3 as he struck out on the day. Their second baseman, Lowry, would go 2 for 3 with a run. And for the Houston Astros, Carlos Javier would go, or Javier would pick up the start. Christian Javier pick up the start. He wouldn't get a decision, as he would only pitch 3.2 innings before he allowed 2 earned runs, but he struck out 4 batters. Their elite second baseman, Jose Altuve, would go 3 for 3 with 4 runs on the day. Their elite third baseman, Alex Bregman, would hit his second home run of the season, as he went 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. Their left fielder, Michael Brantley, would go 3 for 5 with an RBI and 2 runs on the day. Their first baseman, Yuli Gurriel, would go 3 for 3 with an RBI and a run, as he hit his first home run of the season as well. With this win, the Houston Astros are now 2-0, sitting on top of the AL West. They sit 1 game ahead of the second place Seattle Mariners and the Los Angeles Angels, currently in the AL West, just to show where they stand. Jumping back out to the National League West, the San Diego Padres hosted the Arizona Diamondbacks and were able to pull off a 2-1 win. Pagan picked up his second win of the season in relief. As for the Padres, they would win this one in the earlier innings, picking up 3 of their 4 runs in the first 3 innings. For the Diamondbacks in this matchup, Merrill Kelly would get the start, as he would allow 3 earned runs in 4 innings pitched. Out of their hitters, their center fielder, Ketel Marte, would go 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run, as he hit his second home run of the season, the only home run of the day for Arizona. For the San Diego Padres in this matchup, their elite shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., would go 0 for 3. Their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, would go 0 for 2 with a run, as he walked twice. Their first baseman, Eric Hosmer, would go 3 for 3 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs, as Eric Hosmer would hit his second home run of the season today too. With this win, the San Diego Padres are now 2-0. They have the best record in the National League West, and they are currently sitting 2 games ahead of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are now 0-2 and now sit at the very bottom of the National League West. And last but not least, jumping to Seattle to take a look at what's going on in that division. The San Francisco Giants were able to beat the Seattle Mariners 6-3, as 5 of their runs came in the 6th and 7th inning. The Mariners would take the early lead, as they ended up losing it. The start would go to Kikuchi. Kikuchi would allow 3 earned runs in the 6 innings that he pitched, as he struck out 10 batters on the day. Steckenrider would pick up the loss for Seattle. And then out of their hitters, their first baseman, Evan White, would go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs, as he had 2 of the 3. For the San Francisco Giants in this matchup, Johnny Cueto would pick up the start. He allowed 3 earned runs in 5.2 innings pitched, as he struck out 7 batters. Their second baseman, Donovan Solano, would go 3 for 5, as he finished 2 for 2. Their elite their former MVP, future Hall of Fame catcher Buster Posey would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run, as he had his second home run of the season. And their third baseman, former American League MVP Evan Longoria, would hit his second home run of the season, as he went 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs and a run. With this win, the San Francisco Giants are now 1-1. They are now tied with the Rockies and the Dodgers, the defending champs, for the second best record in the National League West, as they trail the San Diego Padres by a game in the division. And then with this loss, the Seattle Mariners are now 1-1, as they are now tied with the Los Angeles Angels for the second best record in the AL West, as they trail the first place Houston Astros by a game. That's currently what the MLB schedule is looking like right now. Looking forward to today's matchup, starting at 1:05. The New York Yankees, featuring the elite Corey Kluber, are going to host Ross Stripling and the Toronto Blue Jays. At 1:10, the Boston Red Sox are going to host the Baltimore Orioles on ESPN+. At 10 o'clock, the Detroit Tigers are going to host the Cleveland Indians. At 2:10, the Kansas City Royals are going to host the Texas Rangers. At 2:20, the Chicago Cubs, featuring Jake Arrieta, are going to host the Pittsburgh Pirates, who ended up with the worst record in the National League and the MLB last year. At 4:05, the Philadelphia Phillies are going to host the Atlanta Braves as Charlie Morton makes his Atlanta Braves debut. At 4:07, the Oakland Athletics are going to host the Houston Astros as Lance McCullers gets his first start of the season. At 4:10, the Cincinnati Reds are going to face off against the St. Louis Cardinals as Adam Wainwright's going to get his first start of the season. At 6:10, the Miami Marlins are going to host the Tampa Bay Rays as the Rays are still looking to sweep the Marlins in their series. At 7:10, the Milwaukee Brewers are going to host the Minnesota Twins as Jose Barrios looks to get his first start for Minnesota. At 8:10, the Colorado Rockies are going to host the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers as the Los Angeles Dodgers' third elite starting pitcher Walker Buehler looks to make his start this season. At 8:40, the San Diego Padres host the Arizona Diamondbacks. At 9:07, the Los Angeles Angels are going to host the Chicago White Sox as Lance Lynn looks to make his first start with the White Sox. And then at 9:10, the Seattle Mariners look to host the San Francisco Giants as those look to be all the games in the MLB as of right now. Really quickly looking out to what's going on in the NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs were able to go to Winnipeg and beat the Jets 2-1 in a shootout to pick up their 24th win of the season. With this win, the Toronto Maple Leafs are now sitting on top of the North Division by 4 points over the Oilers and the Jets with this win. Staying up there, the Edmonton Oilers were able to host the Calgary Flames and they picked up a 3-2 win as they picked up their game-winning goal in the third period. With their 23rd win of the season, the Edmonton Oilers are now they're tied with the Jets for the second best record in the North Division as they trail the Toronto Maple Leafs by 4 points in the table. That's currently what that's looking like at the moment. Jumping out to the East Division, the New Jersey Devils hosted the Washington Capitals, and the Capitals were able to pick up the overtime win, beating the Devils 2-1 to pick up their 24th win of the season. With this win, the Washington Capitals are now sitting on top of the East Division as they now sit 2 points ahead of the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins at the moment. Jumping out to the West for the last 3 games, the Colorado Avalanche hosted the St. Louis Blues and were able to pull off a 3-2 win. 2 of their goals would come from their center, Nathan MacKinnon, as he had 2 of those goals. With their 24th win of the season, the Colorado Avalanche now sit on top of the West Division by 2 points over the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Jumping to Anaheim, the Anaheim Ducks were able to face off against the Arizona Coyotes, and in this game, the Coyotes would beat the Ducks 4-2 with 2 of their goals coming in the third period. With their 17th win of the season, the Coyotes are now sitting with the 4th best record in the West Division as they trail the first place Colorado Avalanche by a total of 12 points in the table. Or by 13 points in the table. I'm doing my math all wrong. But also looking out to Los Angeles, staying within the city, the Kings hosted the San Jose Sharks as the Sharks were able to blank the Kings 3-0. Their goalie had 30 saves on the day as they picked up their 16th win of the season. With this win, the San Jose Sharks now hold the 6th best record in the West Division as they now trail the first place Avalanche by 16 total points in the table. With that said, those are all the hockey games to look forward. Those were all the big matches from yesterday. Looking forward to what's going on today. It looks as though there are no primetime games except for the Islanders Flyers at 7 o'clock. That'll be on ESPN+. At 1 o'clock, the Boston Bruins will host the Pittsburgh Penguins. At the same time, the Tampa Bay Lightning will host the Detroit Red Wings. At 3 o'clock, the Nashville Predators will host the Chicago Blackhawks. At 7 o'clock, out of the games that aren't on primetime, the Buffalo Sabres are going to host the New York Rangers. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to host the Dallas Stars. The Florida Panthers are going to host the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Montreal Canadiens are going to host the Ottawa Senators up north. At 9 o'clock, the Colorado Avalanche are going to host the St. Louis Blues. The Las Vegas Golden Knights are going to host the Minnesota Wild, and that game's going to be on ESPN+ at 9 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, the Los Angeles Kings are going to host the San Jose Sharks. As that looks to be a back-to-back matchup that the Kings look to get better advantage of this time. And last but not least, leaving the North American continent just to get a sense of what's going on in the world of soccer, because of course we are entering a season where where we're watching club play again. There were not any big games yesterday, but of course looking forward to what's going on today. Starting in the Premier League, Chelsea's going to host West Brom at 7:30 in the morning. And looking at where Chelsea is sitting in the Premier League, Chelsea's currently holding on to the 4th best record as they currently trail 3rd place Leicester City by 5 points. They sit 2 points ahead of West Ham, ahead of fifth place West Ham. So they're still really trying to hold on to a Champions League spot. So a win here would do a lot in that regard. And Leicester City, who is currently sitting with the third best record in the Premier League, they're going to host Manchester City at 12:30. Man City currently has the best record in the Premier League by about 14 points. Leicester City is currently holding on to a third place spot, 1 point behind Manchester United. A win could very possibly spring them ahead of Man U, but a win versus Man City, especially in the calendar year of 2021, has been incredibly difficult to come by. And then at 3 o'clock, Arsenal is going to host Liverpool. Right now, Liverpool sitting with the seventh best record. A win here could possibly see them jump over sixth place Tottenham to jump right back into Europa League play. But as of right now, Liverpool is not qualifying for any European tournaments as of right now, because they're sitting seventh in the Premier League. Jumping to the Bundesliga in Germany, Borussia Dortmund will host Eintracht Frankfurt, as of course Borussia Dortmund is having to deal with Erling Haaland dealing with the possibility of leaving the team. Looking at how Dortmund sits in the Bundesliga, they're sitting fifth in the table as they trail Frankfurt by 4 points in the table. Right now, Frankfurt is sitting fourth, so that's how close these two teams are. Even though Borussia Dortmund they mathematically cannot jump over Frankfurt, a win here could bring them an inch closer to Champions League contention for the next year. So a win here would be very important for Dortmund. Looking out to what's going on in the afternoon, RB Leipzig will host Bayern Munich at 12:30. This game will be on ESPN2. RB Leipzig is currently sitting with the second best record in the Bundesliga as they trail Bayern Munich, the first place team, by 4 points. With this 1-2 matchup, it's going to be very important, and a lot of eyes are going to be on this game because Bayern Munich is missing their elite Polish striker Robert Lewandowski for the next few weeks due to a knee injury that he suffered during the international matchups. Jumping out into Italian Serie A, AC Milan is going to host Sampdoria they're going to host them at about 6:30-ish. But looking at to how this looks in Italy, AC Milan is sitting incredibly close to the top. They're sitting 6 points below Inter Milan, so a win here could see them do a lot in Serie A. And then Juventus will face off against Torino at 12 o'clock. They're going to face off against their inner city rivals, or their cross city rivals. With a win here, Juventus could see themselves move even closer to Inter Milan as they now trail AC Milan by 2 points. A loss for AC Milan and a win for Juventus would be very advantageous for Juventus moving forward in this table. And then looking at where Inter Milan is, they're about to face off against Bologna at 2:45. Inter Milan, like I just said, at the very top of the table. This game will be on ESPN2 and ESPN Deportes once it's on. Looking out into La Liga, Real Madrid are going to face off against Eibar at 10:15. The game will be in Madrid. Looking out to how this game is going to looking out to how it's going to play out in La Liga. Real Madrid currently sits 2 points below second place Barcelona and 6 points below Atletico Madrid. So a win here could very possibly see them jump over Barcelona for second place. So a win, or temporarily because Barcelona isn't playing. So a win here would be very important for Real Madrid. Looking out into Ligue 1, Lens is going to host Olympique Lyonnais at 3 o'clock. PSG is going to host Lille at 11. And then Monaco is going to face off against Metz. This game will be at 7 o'clock. I mentioned all of these games at once just to give a little bit of context as to how the Ligue 1 is looking in France. The top 4 teams in France are all separated by 4 teams. The 2 teams at the top, PSG and Lille, they're facing each other today. This game will be at 11 o'clock, and the winner here will decide who will be the clear-cut number 1 in France. If both teams draw, then the advantage, of course, goes to PSG. But if Lille beats PSG, they outright have the best record in France. Lyonnais sits 3 points behind both of them, so a draw here could be very advantageous for Lyon. And if Lyonnais loses, or if any of those other teams loses, they could see Monaco possibly jump a little bit and see themselves enter the top of the French table, this picture. With that said, that's everything that's going on with soccer as of today, Saturday, April 3rd, 2021. I'm James Sims, and this is The Elite. Once all of these exhibitions once they're finished, I will get back to you tomorrow on Sunday, April 4th, 2021. Once again, thanks for listening to all 49 minutes of my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with a new episode tomorrow. Peace out.